My name is Jon Wright, and I am the EMEA Research Manager here at IGD. And we'll be running through the 5 trends from South Africa and how they can be applied globally and how they are being applied globally. So there's a little bit about what we're seeing in South Africa and then about where global inspiration can come from in terms of how people are doing it from around the world. This is the first time we've done a webinar in conjunction with the Consumer Goods Forum. And the reason for doing this is that for this year, the Consumer Goods Forum is actually in Cape Town. It's the first time that the Consumer Goods Forum has taken its global summit to Africa. We just want to explain a little bit up front about the difference between the Consumer Goods Forum, what it is, and the actual global summit itself. So the Consumer Goods Forum is a truly global organization that brings together CEOs and senior management from retailers, manufacturers and service providers. And it moves around the world. So for those people who would like to attend this year but feel like Cape Town is potentially too far away, next year it will be somewhere else and hopefully it will be closer to where you are based. And it's really about bringing together retailers and suppliers in much the same way that IGD does here in the UK. On a global basis to try and improve and look to the key issues that are driving businesses globally. In relation to the Global Summit specifically, as I say, it's the first time it's been run in Africa, but it will be moving on and it'll be somewhere different next year. The summit in Cape Town specifically will be looking at emerging markets and the opportunities that arise from disruption, some of which are specific for emerging markets, but others that are global in nature. So it's going to have something for everyone. Some of the issues they're going to look at are sort of shoppers' changing perception around trust of global or large-scale brands, growth of social network and how shoppers are trusting online participants as much or more than well-known retailers and brands, and how this is affecting how retailers and suppliers are engaging with those shoppers. So these are just a couple of the disruptions that are looking at, and it's clear from what they received, and a lot of the questions we receive here at IGD, is that we're living in an age of disruption. But beneath those disruptions and the disruptive nature of some of these things lie opportunities for retailers and suppliers. And so the summit will cover off some of these topics with CEOs from across the industry sharing their experiences of capturing opportunities but in a responsible nature and how they can be developed for the future. So that gives you a brief introduction if you don't know about the CGF or the Global Summit. And for anybody who is actually traveling down to Cape Town, to South Africa, what we thought we'd do quickly here at the beginning is set the scene about the market overall. So in terms of it, IGD estimates that the market is worth about 36 billion US dollars from a grocery standpoint. So about 450 billion rand in 2016, so it's part forecast in that sense. In per capita terms, this works out at about 650 US dollars, so it compares with about 1,000 US dollars for a market like Thailand, if you're from Asia, or about 2,000 US dollars in Turkey. So it sort of gives you a comparative in terms of the longer-term growth opportunities that the country provides. And within the market, we estimate that about 40% of spend remains within informal or traditional channels. So about 14.5 billion of that is within those channels. So this obviously provides a long-term opportunity for modern retailers and channels to encourage shoppers to switch their spend out of the former and into the latter. However, we will come on and look at how the informal and traditional channels remain strongly competitive, and instead of just being pushed out, are actually seeing their share of the market remain pretty steady in many ways, and really in terms of specific categories actually doing very, very well. So that sort of gives you an introduction to the grocery market. In terms of the actual country itself, population of South Africa is about 55 million, so you can see in terms of the potential market, about 28 million women and 27 million men according to the statistics of South Africa, and 60% of those are below the age of about 30 and 40% are below the age of 20. So in terms of it, it's a really dynamic and long growth potential market. One of the things that we will look at and touch on is the fact that, unfortunately, as of the first quarter of 2016, unemployment in the country has risen to about 27%, with continuing job losses across a number of different industries. So unemployment or underemployment certainly is an issue that is going to affect South African retail market in the short term, and hopefully won't be a longer term issue. Two more figures for you here. 0.6% was the country's GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 2015, quarter on quarter. And this compares with more recent growth of 2.2% for the whole of 2013 and 1.5% in 2014. So you can see at the moment how the economy and the GDP is only expanding ever so slightly. And unfortunately, again, the IMF has cut its forecast for South Africa's GDP growth in 2016 to 0.7% from 1.3%. But looking out to 2017, it is expecting an expansion of 1.8%. So hopefully it's going to be a short-term issue. Again, something that is a bit of a short-term issue are these three figures across the bottom here. So consumer prices rose 6.3% annually to March 2016, although this was down from 7% in 2016. If we move across to 9.8%, this is food inflation in March, and has followed a continued and upward trend since November 2015. So year-on-year figures were 4.8% in November, 5.8% in December, 7% in January, 8% in February, and hitting 9.8% in March. The final figure is around vegetables and fruit. These were 18.7% more expensive in March 2016 than they were in March 2015. So obviously inflation at a low end is good news, but once you start hitting 20% for staple products, obviously this limits the opportunity for spend, especially amongst low-income consumers. So 2015 would be another number to put up, but it was the year with the lowest rainfall in South Africa. And this is really accentuating this issue, and it's likely to lead to continued rises in food prices for much of 2016 and potentially into 2017 as well. So this is an issue that is affecting the market at the moment and will continue to do so. So for any emerging market that's had to deal with high inflation, then they can obviously understand the difficulties for retailers and suppliers in terms of passing some of these price increases along to shoppers and the effect that it has on overall margins. So before we look at the 5 trends, the last slide in terms of the numbers, so that the consumer backdrop is not really a positive one. And recent result statements from a range of retailers in the market have really underlined how it remains a very difficult market to operate in. There's a challenging political environment. The less I say about this, probably the better. But yeah, I think if we describe it as challenging, then that probably covers off enough that we need to say on it. And that creates a certain amount of uncertainty, and that's affecting and accentuating the high unemployment, and leading to or causing some of the issues around rising interest rates, which again is flowing through into difficulties around credit, and limiting opportunities for people to buy non-grocery. So in terms of footfall and attracting people into shopping centres and non-grocery retail environments, and then encouraging them to shop in grocery stores in those environments is becoming a little bit harder as well. Inflation, we have touched on. Rising inflation across grocery ranges is becoming higher and higher, and this is an issue that will just get worse, unfortunately, as 2016 progresses. And while some of those are very South Africa specific, I think the global macroeconomic outlook generally is not positive. And obviously this is creating a certain amount of difficulty and general uncertainty globally, which then feeds through into economies locally. So in terms of it, it does look like a bit of a challenging, difficult market for many people to operate in at the moment. So having depressed you all in the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes potentially of the webinar, hopefully what we're going to look at here are some opportunities. So despite this backdrop, the market is expanding, And there are a number of different areas that we think that retailers are looking at the moment and have the potential to benefit from further, and suppliers can work with them to target these areas as well. So there's a whole area around shoppers, targeting individuals a little bit more, missions, around food to go, the whole idea of retailing modernization, which I touched on. Some softer areas around supporting shoppers as loyalty becomes a little bit more fragmented, a little bit less of a driver of where people shop. Casting yourself as a supporter of shoppers from a retailing or supplier standpoint becomes much, much more important. And then looking at online as a longer term opportunity and the importance of actually preparing for that growth now rather than waiting for it to actually hit and really start driving market growth so that you can actually benefit from that growth rather than it going to somewhere else. So without further ado, let's look at targeting shoppers and missions. I mean, generally, retailers in South Africa have involved a range of strategies to tailor their formats to meet the needs of specific trading areas and have developed formats aimed at both ends of the shopper spending scale, with this seeing them increasingly focus on local shoppers and specific missions. I could have picked on, therefore, a number of different retailers, but I wanted to highlight what Spar in the country is doing. At the moment, Spar is one of the country's fastest growing in terms of sales, and its multi-format, multi-fascia strategy is, despite being built around its core supermarket format, is being flexed and enabling store owners to differentiate themselves by empowering them to meet the needs of very local shoppers, providing them with centralized support and allowing them to flex the model according to the ranges demanded by shoppers in their local environment. So the photos you can see on this slide come from 3 different stores in Cape Town. So if you're going down for the CGF Summit this year, they are definitely ones to go and visit, and we'll come and touch upon how you can get that information later on. Now, all these stores are actually within 3 miles or 5 kilometers, depending on your choice of measuring distances, but each one of them had a highly differentiated offer depending on their location and how and what their shoppers were actually asking them. So entrepreneur store owners are able to react quickly to changing shopping habits, and for example, in the top right hand corner, the photograph shows a renovated area of of the supermarket in Sea Point, and this has actually been switched away quite quickly from bakery, where the store owner was seeing a fall in sales, to health food products after that owner noted a fast growing interest in the category from its shoppers. So this flexibility is best evidenced in these photographs by Spar, but I think it's something that South African retailers have really latched onto, and suppliers can help them do that. If we come and look at a couple of inspirational stores that we would take you around if we were going more globally, the first I wanted to highlight was Albert Heijn in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And it has one of its busiest stores in the center of Amsterdam, and it's built a store really by putting the way that its 2 different main shopper types use the store. There's a quick in and out lunchtime need from people who work in local offices, and they have created this sort of inner circle of the store that enables people to get in and out within 5 minutes. And it's really focused on things like sushi, around chilled drinks, around sandwiches, and it really enables people to get in and get out very quickly. There's a further concentric circle around the outside of this where you're not obviously stopped from going into, and you can obviously as a shopper move between them, but has further categories that probably concentrate on food for later or for later in the week, certainly. So things around fresh or bakery, the counters, frozen obviously being a key part of that. Additional services and things like beer and wine. So this is a really good example of a retailer sort of very much putting the shopper at the heart of its store design. And another one is what Sainsbury's is doing here in the UK. So they're trialing a number of different formats. This isn't just a convenience-focused idea. This is around a supermarket in Alperton. And what it's done is broken its offer down to sort of 4 major areas when you look at it from a grocery point of view. So food for now, right at the front of the store, and that bleeds through into things like food for tonight, and then into food for the next few days and food for many days. further out. So I think there's a lot of inspiration that retailers in South Africa can take from other countries, and obviously work the other way in terms of how to target those shoppers on an individual level. One key part of this targeting of individual shoppers, or certainly targeting missions, is around the whole idea of food to go. So at this point, what we would like you to do is just raise your hand around whether food to go or food for later are of growing importance for those people listening today.
So we've got a few hands going up there. I would say that's about 20%, 25% of those hands going up. Thanks, everyone.
So if you're going down to Cape Town for the summit, or if not, if you can get down there, then there's some really great examples of food to go and retailers who are really targeting this mission really well. And this is Food Lovers Eatery. So Food Lovers Market have opened a store called Food Lovers Eatery in Cape Town, and it is a great example of retailers really set up the whole store around food to go or food for later. This store was opened in 2015 and really underlines how Food Lovers Market is maximizing the focus on fresh, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, high quality ingredients, and to concentrate pretty much entirely on food for now and food for later solutions. The store also caters to a wide range of taste at fresh counters and through pre-prepared meals. With its city centre location, the store is incredibly busy. So we were in there a couple of times during our visit recently, and at lunchtime, at the end of the day, it was absolutely packed with shoppers. So it underlines that real sort of growing demand for food to go and how people want to shop and how they want inspiration. So if it's not just around providing simple meal solutions, it's about taking that inspiration about how you can change the meal solutions during the day, or how you can target different shoppers with different tastes as well. And another store that highlights this trend in South Africa is Woolworth's Waterstone. And this provides the latest thinking from the retailer in terms of ranging and design for standalone food stores. So a lot of its food departments are a part of stores that also sell general merchandise and clothing, but this is a standalone store solely focused at food, and its standalone food stores are outperforming its total estate at the moment. And this store really underlines why that's the case. I think the food to go in this store and the store's cafe offer really stand out. They really are, from a global standpoint, sort of best in class examples of how food to go is growing in importance in terms of driving footfall, in terms of driving engagement with shoppers as well. And then this feeds through into sort of within the store and enables store within store concepts that provide depth, differentiation, and really allow shopper engagement. So the coffee stand, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here, is a really good example of how a retailer can use a product that shoppers are really interested in, driving footfall, but using it as a way to sort of convey messages around the premium or the quality nature of what they're offering, and through people actually, staff being on the stand and being available to answer questions, really ramping up and increasing the engagement. And this was present throughout the store. So it's quite clear how Woolworths is working towards its short-term goal of offering shoppers the choice of either buying to eat at its stores or to take home from its ready meal ranges and things like that, noting some shoppers' desire to pay more for convenience. Now you could say, that's easy. If you're a premium retailer, people are willing to pay more for your product, or that's generally the shopper type that you get. So from a global standpoint, what we thought I'd do is run through a couple of examples and show you it's not just about a premium offer. And if we come to Europe and look at two examples from discounters here in the region, The first here is Rema 1000 from Denmark, and it has broken out and created a store-in-store area for its food to go. And the left sort of photo shows the clear blocking that makes the fixtures easier to shop and includes things like fruit and vegetables to give a really healthy perception. So it's not just about sandwiches or other products that some people might perceive as being slightly unhealthy. And in the right, the salads are actually broken out into a separate compartment and include things like forks that enable people to shop easily, quickly, and then eat on the go as well. So really thinking about the solutions that make it easier for shoppers to buy and eat on the go. And another discounter is Biedronka, so in Poland. And it's owned by a Portuguese retailer called Jeronimo Martins, and it is testing a new addition to some of its stores in Warsaw. So the range has been developed under the sort of tagline or slogan of really good to go. So again, it's really a nice image, and it's suggesting a whole idea and driving a healthy perception of the range. The clear food to go offer stands out in store and uses coloured fixtures and signage to really drive attention to it. And there are things like a drink station that then benefits and accentuates the overall food to go offer and drives basket size as well. So the food to go is a key element of it, and then it's using those messages around it and product adjacencies to promote areas around fresh as well. So again, using the one product to then benefit the whole store. Another area, the third trend that we look at, is around the whole idea of retailing modernization. And traditional retail really remains a vitally important grocery channel across some of the world's fastest growing regions, not just within South Africa, but you can see as we look out globally, there are a number of different markets within this, like Nigeria, and I know we have other people on the webinar from some of the other markets on this chart. So specifically in relation to South Africa, we say it's about 40%, so it's a $14.5, nearly $15 billion opportunity. So you can see from the chart, it's not even particularly comparative to other markets, so it's a huge opportunity on a global basis. And the channel really remains incredibly resilient in the face of increasing competition from modern retailers. And suppliers and manufacturers, though, sometimes remain relatively unprepared to maximize the sales opportunities and grow brand awareness via this channel. So at IGD, we've identified sort of 6 tactics that we would think would enable people to win in traditional trade. Things around sort of front of store solutions, making sure that you're optimizing your counter presence, how and where to secure premium shelf space, so that, and much of this depends and differentiates by the type of outlet that traditional trade is operating through, and other areas around unique packaging, raising retailer capability. And we're seeing some of this come through at the moment in South Africa as Pick n Pay and others work with independent stores to try and improve the overall offer and bring them into their supply chains as well. And then finally, around things like driving promotional awareness, which is becoming a key issue in many markets. I'm not going to run through every single one of these, and I know it's a question actually that we received earlier, and I think we could probably do a webinar solely on traditional retailing. So it's definitely something that we know there's a lot of interest in, so please do come and ask us if you have any more questions around this, and it is one that we will be picking up with later. But in terms of one of the elements within this, in terms of what to consider, as many traditional outlets have limited space or servicing shoppers via a counter or a hatch, obviously getting your brand visible at the front of the store is paramount. Obviously, if that's not the case, your products can be easily lost. So in terms of that, it's thinking about the solutions that you can implement that actually raise your awareness. Things like hanging strips here on the left are a very popular way to maximize space at the front of the store, utilizing vital selling space that might previously have been redundant. While on the right-hand side, you can see things like the storefront banners that deliver strong brand awareness and messaging opportunities for brands, whilst providing improved store appearance and shelter from the weather, obviously in very hot countries. So this is just one of the trends that we would look at, and it's definitely something that we can follow up on in terms of the queries that we've already received before today's webinar. The next one is a sort of softer area around sort of corporate social responsibility and winning by supporting shoppers. And the retailers in South Africa at the moment are developing a number of different ways. So Woolworths has developed and is offering a bursary for a one-year scholarship to cookery schools in the country, and this will provide a scholarship in 2017 and followed by a second year that will be sponsored by the school itself. So at the end of it, somebody will come out of it and receive Cordon Bleu accredited training. So a really good way to support specific people who want to get into the food and grocery industry. You can see the great tie-up between what they're trying to do and the messages that they're generally trying to send into the market as well. ShopRite has taken a slightly different tack. So it is assisting communities affected by the drought and who have been left without water and or hit by water shortages. So the retailer has donated water itself to communities, and through its website it has encouraged people to donate money to support its efforts further. So a very reactionary way of supporting shoppers at the moment with a very specific problem that I highlighted in terms of being the drought. Another way is around pick and pay. So again, that whole idea very clearly communicated on its website at the moment, and it's pulling a number of different levers. So in this shot, it is showing how it is helping shoppers by cutting prices and fighting inflation as well. So specifically around, in this example here, is private label ranges. But again, that message about, taking that news story, something that somebody's reading about in the newspapers, inflation every single day, and reacting and creating messages that really target that issue head on. Elsewhere, its chairman, Gareth Ackerman, has called on greater cooperation between governments and producers and retailers to fight against diabetes and obesity. And this is actually part of the Consumer Goods Forum's own health initiative program. So this is a great example of where the Consumer Goods Forum is trying to bring retailers and suppliers together to actually answer and deal with an issue that exists in the market. If we take that globally, I pulled together a few examples here. So starting in the top left-hand corner, so Coles in Australia has a really great campaign about how it's driving down prices for shoppers. And it has been a very consistently run program over the last few years, and it is enabling it to win in what is a very competitive market at the moment. And it's really driving shopper perception. This is enabled to minimize short-term price activity. So again, for all those retailers and suppliers on the webinar who are being affected by the difficulties of promotions, this is a really great campaign that underlines the benefits of everyday low pricing on a consistent basis. And this has then been driven by ideas around its everyday campaign, and this is about explaining the benefits of everyday low pricing. Rava in Slovakia is about how shoppers are encouraged to buy locally sourced products. So specifically in this example, the retailer ran a competition, and if shoppers purchase 3 or more locally produced products within one purchase, they could be entered into a draw to win €3,000. So again, a really nice way to play up that idea of buying locally. And the next one across is that, with a big market geographically sized like South Africa, local can mean a lot of different things to different people. So this is an example from the US, which suffers from the same sort of issue. And the signage clearly defines local on a country level, a regional level, and a country basis as well. So shoppers can see quite clearly how local a product is. So again, it nicely plays into that whole idea. It adds depth to the offer and communicates a stronger support for local farmers and suppliers at different levels. Another area is around health, and the three examples across the bottom. Health and wellness is becoming a growing trend. And here are three different examples from retailers about how they're playing into and enabling shoppers to benefit from their health and wellness strategies. So Lidl in Belgium has introduced healthy lunchboxes for children with a selection of mini fruit, vegetables, nuts, rice cakes, cookies and health drinks. Really good way, obviously, in helping younger children to live well. While Ahold in Belgium, again, is running a campaign to promote healthy food, a happy mood, and this was very targeted over summer months, and partnered with a nutritionist to actually create in-store displays and explain the benefits of specific fresh produce and things around juice machines and everything else. So again, a really nice way to increase a basket size by encouraging shoppers to pick up 2 or 3 things rather than just 1 or 2. And then here in the bottom right-hand corner is around Whole Foods Market in the UK, and one of its stores in London organised a free running club in partnership with a women's sportwear retailer, and offered participants a free smoothie and goodie bag on their return to their run. So again, bringing people back into store at the end and providing a really nice way for people to interact and engage with each other as well. So these are a number of the different areas, and depending on what's important for your retailer, for your company or your brand, hopefully this provides you with some different inspiration around softer ways to promote loyalty and drive shopper engagement. The final trend we'll look at is around online as a longer term opportunity. And again, although spending on grocery ranges are likely to remain only a small part of online retailing into the medium term in South Africa, as part of a second Raise Your Hand, we wanted to ask whether you thought your company was set up at the moment to take advantage of the online opportunity, either in South Africa or in the market that you actually operate in. So if you could raise your hands, then that would be great.
So we've got a few hands going up there. I would say looks like about 9% of our audience think they're set up for online.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I think the thing around it is, although it's seen as a longer-term opportunity, setting up and getting ready for online is important to do now before it actually becomes a mainstream channel. And we'll come on and have a look. So, about 27 million people in South Africa have access to the internet, and it has one of the highest internet penetrations in sub-Saharan Africa. It also has a number of different retailers operating online, both from a pure play and multi-channel standpoints, and this is enabling different retailers to target different shopper groups. And at a market level, it's seeming like sales growth of about 25% is being driven annually. And although it doesn't break out its sales specifically, Pick n Pay in its very recently set of full-year results said that online its sales grew by 38%, aided by a stronger range and substantial improvement in product availability, which enabled it to add a further 40,000 new customers. So not a small number of people that we're talking about here. And it's looking to benefit from the growing interest in online and will be continuing to invest, opening a second dedicated picking warehouse, which will be operational by the end of 2016, and incorporate some of the learnings from a picking site that it has near Cape Town. And I think where you can really start to, in terms of take inspiration, one of the key areas where Africa in general, but South Africa specifically, looks to is around how mobile phones are driving much of the growth. And I think if we're trying to look globally, then Asia more widely and China specifically provide inspiration and a path for retailers and suppliers to develop along. So there are a number of different ways that online is developing in Asia through things like bricks and clicks, so tying up a multi-channel strategy. So people, global retailers like Tesco and Walmart are employing that. But there's a growing number of pure play online players, either in grocery specialists like Red Mart in Singapore, or Meragrocer specifically only in Delhi within India, or marketplace websites like Matahari Mall in Indonesia, which are enabling people to, small suppliers, to work and target individual shoppers as well. There are a number of different retailer partnerships or working with third-party partnerships. So in terms of retailer partnerships, we're seeing a number of different bricks and mortar retailers partner with pure play retailers. So Tesco launching a baby website specifically on Lazada in Thailand, and lots of retailers partnering obviously with Alibaba's Tmall to either expand online in China or enter the China market specifically. And you can see a number of different models like this probably emerging. And then in terms of third-party specialists, things like HappyFresh and third-party platform provider for retailers to get online, or even delivery solutions like Amazon in China using third-party vans and bikes to deliver products to customers' homes. So there are a number of different ways, and again, it's about trying to identify the best way that your brand or your company as a retailer can work and maximize the opportunity online. So hopefully by the end of this section, you're not as depressed as you were after the first 10 minutes when I was running through various bits and pieces. But hopefully this highlights a number of the different opportunities that we identified and looked at in terms of South Africa, how and where they're being applied globally as well. So before I get on to some of the questions, if you're attending the Global Summit in Cape Town, there's a number of different things that IGD are actually going to be doing. There's news stories already up online around things like South Africa, looking at some of the things we've looked at today, but also looking more widely about how they're also being implemented in other markets around Africa, like Kenya, for example. If you're attending, we've got a store guide which is available on Retail Analysis, but also on our IGD website, which will show the best stores that we've identified in Cape Town for you to go to see and take global inspiration from. A couple of people will be attending from IGD, Nick Downing and Louise Spillard. So if you're there and want to meet with us, then please get in touch. And then the final thing is that we will be producing a document that will go out to CGF members around the key trends that we saw and how that we heard about at the summit, and how, again, they're being implemented globally, not just specifically in relation to one country. So we're going to now head on to some of the questions that we've either received today or previously. We had a number of different questions around how would you take that trend, so one of the 5 trends that I highlighted today, and how would you implement it, or how would you think it would impact my country specifically? On the basis that I'm going to not alienate, but explaining how it could be implemented in the US versus Thailand versus another country. It's probably easiest if I deal with all of those separately, and I'll also speak to my colleagues who research and look after those markets as well, so I can talk through how that works. But one of the questions we've had is around, I guess, so we sort of touched on some of these elements in the presentation, but we've been asked which global trends can be applied in South Africa. So taking some of the stuff globally and actually applying it in South Africa rather than the other way around. I think we've looked at a few of those. If we move beyond the topics that we covered today, but I think around large stores, so hypermarkets, not as big an issue for retailers in South Africa as they may be, say, here in Europe. They're not as large a share of retailers' estates or sales, but they will become a bigger issue over time, especially as a couple of the elements that we looked at. So online becomes bigger, and the convenience channel becomes bigger as well. So I think just like here in Europe or elsewhere, suppliers who can help retailers around repurposing space, creating destination categories and the like are probably going to be ahead of the game. Promotions, I think, again, was something we could have done a whole webinar around the promotional element. Promotions are becoming a bigger portion of and more of an issue, I guess, for retailers and suppliers. And so, again, there's a lot around global best practice that you can take, all ones that work regionally. You know, this, from a supplier point of view, sharing best practice across countries or regions is really, really key. So wherever you can try and drive basket spend or frequency will certainly help suppliers stand out with retailers. And then the last thing I guess what I will touch on is something around convenience. We sort of touched on it in the presentation, but I think as missions are becoming more important and the convenience channel really sort of doesn't emerge, there are some great convenience store operators, but I think it's become more important specifically around missions. I think helping retailers understand how shoppers move through the whole shopper journey in relation to your specific category or your specific product will be key to helping you stand out and drive growth. So I think you, as from supplier's point of view, can also help by working out what products and how many facings are really, really necessary to be present in a convenience store so that you can help people, retailers specifically, around the number of products to stock in a convenience store to make it relevant to a shopper. So convenience is obviously quite an interesting topic. We've had sort of a few questions around it. And I think we sort of covered off some of that around missions, around food to go, obviously being the most obvious. I think it's mainly around trying to help retailers make sure that they're adapting stores and offers to locations and the needs of those local shoppers. You know, convenience stores should not be thought of as simply being small supermarkets. They really need to be differentiated, and the ranges need to be thought of really in the same way. So again, if you're part of a big supplier or global supplier, and you can take global inspiration from some stores globally to make you stand out and explain the differences between a proper convenience offer and just a small supermarket, then I think that really helps retailers. We've had a few questions around traditional and informal trade. As I say, I think that's something we could really get into depth on, and it'll be a webinar in itself. One of the other couple of questions we've had around cash and carry formats, and so how that overlaps into the independent trade. And I think Massmart with Macro at the moment is one of its fastest growing banners in the country. And so again, a really interesting format that's growing at the moment. And again, I think you can look to cash and carry operators globally for inspiration to see how cash and carry operators generally are evolving their offer to meet the needs of various shoppers, be it individuals or independent store owners. And it's obviously a great way of operating and providing a low price and low cost route to market. So I think any way you can look at that, it's a great way to target shoppers in that way. So I think that's sort of, as I say, there are a few other questions that we will definitely follow up on and look at specifically. But overall, I think that brings us to the end of the session. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening today, and we'll hope to see you all again for the next IGD webinar.